on ways to add and subtract. We have about 6 different ways that we are going to learn about. First, we have 10 frame. 10 frame is when you use 2 rows of 5 squares. You shade them however you want. I just put dots in them. And you look at it and you basically add or subtract them. So, when you look at the first row, you have 5 of the boxes shaded in and 2 on the bottom. So if you were to count these, how many would you have?
7.
Correct. If you were to look at it in a subtraction standpoint, you have 5 on the top, 2 on the bottom. But if we subtract 5 minus 2, we get
3.
That is correct. Now, if we move on to the second way to add or subtract, you use the number line. This is really simple when you think about it in your head. So if we were going to do 2 plus 8, we start at 2 on our number line, and we move 8 spaces over, we get to
10.
That's correct. But if we were to subtract 10 minus 8, we would move to the left until we get to
2.
Yes. The third way is to use your fingers. Don't do this when you grow up because people will laugh at you. So, when you use your hands, so bring out your hands. Okay. So we're going to do 5 minus 3. So we're going to hold up our hands. We're going to take away 3 fingers. And how many do we have? Well, if we count, we have 5 on this hand and 2 on this hand. So how many do we have? 7. But if we had 10 fingers and we wanted to subtract 3, actually that's the same, that's going to be 7, that's too simple. Let's do a different example. We have 10 fingers, we're going to subtract 4. Take away 4 fingers, how many fingers do we have?
6.
That is correct. If we were going to do this in the adding standpoint, you would look at your hand, you have 5. Say we wanted to add 7. Well, we have more, we only have 10 fingers. So we would start with 5, think about it in our head, then we have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 5 plus 7 is?
12.
That is correct. If we move away from using our fingers to add and subtract, we have example number 4, which is similar to example number 5, but we'll get to that in a minute. We have drawing dots. I used to do this when I multiplied, but we'll get to that later in the year. So when we draw our dots out, say we have, I think this was 2 by 5, so we have 10 here, we have 6 here, 2 here, and 1 here. But when we look at this, we draw out our dots, we just go through and we count each dot individually until we get our total. So if we go through and count these, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. However, if you were to subtract using your dots, so we have a total of 21, we're going to take away 5. So we're going to go through and we're going to count these. We're going to have 10 here, and we have 6 here. So what is our total?
16.
That's correct. If we were to take away all of these and just have the remainder over here, how many would we have?
10.
That is correct. So that is how you could use adding and subtracting by just drawing simple. They don't even have to be dots. You can draw stars or just however you're feeling it. We move on to number 5. We use counters. This is something like maybe an object. I have dice here, so if you have 3 dice plus the 1 die, then how many do you have?
4.
Yes. But if I were to take away 2 of these die, how many do you have left over?
2.
That is correct. So that is how you would use adding and subtracting using counters. And then we move on to number 6, where you put the big number in your head and you count on. So example, we'll start at 8. So we think 8 in our head, and we go through and say we want to add 8 more. We have 8. then we can use our finger method. So we have 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, which you'll learn later on all of your multiples and how that works. So using this method in subtraction, you would think, okay, I have 8, and then you would say, if you wanted to subtract 3, you'd say 7, 6, 5, and then you know 8 minus 3 is 5. So I have a few worksheets that you guys can work on to kind of give you a little bit of practice here. Here's your pencil. First, we're going to work on the adding worksheet. So we have these cute little ice cream cones. So at the top, it's going to tell you how many cones plus, or how many scoops of ice cream plus however many other scoops of ice cream. You're going to write in the cone your answer, and then we'll move on to the next activity. So I did not give myself a copy, so I will just look over here and let you guys work on that one real quick, and then when you're done, we'll move on. Are you done? Or do you have a question?
How do I do this one?
Okay, so the method that I would use is using your fingers. So hold up your hands, hold up 4 fingers. Okay, and then you're going to look at your other hand and then hold up 4 more fingers. When you look at that and count them, how many do you have? What answer did you get?
8.
That's correct.
I'm done.
Alright, so we're going to move on to the next activity. And then later, we're going to have a little quiz about what we learned today. So the second one, we're going to do something similar with the ice cream scoops. And then you're going to put the total in the cone. But this one is for subtracting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. There you go. I'll take that. You're already done? Okay. You did pretty good.
Pretty good. I'll take it.
Which methods did you use?
I'm more of a number line kind of person. I usually stick to the number line.
Same. I do the same thing. I think it's easier. Especially when you just want to picture it in your head. Esteban, are you doing okay? Okay. Alright. The next activity we are going to do, we're going to have a play game. Who likes to play games? Fortnite. Okay. That's a really popular one. Okay, so this is how the game is going to work. I'm going to give you guys your sheets here. And we have adding and subtracting at different sections. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these, we're going to take a couple of these regular 6-sided die. We're going to roll them, and then whatever number lands on top, you're going to add them. And then you're going to place it within the first section. So for number 1 is going to be the first roll, number 2 will be the second roll, and so on.
Just the number, or do we need to do the problem?
So you'll just add it, try to add it. You can use your hands, you can use some of the methods that we went through. Yes.
Do we write the problem?
You don't have to write the problem, I just want to see the answer.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alright, so here we go. So I'm going to shake them, and then I'm going to toss them across the table. We have 6 plus 1. Number 2, we have 3 and 3. Good job. Okay, number 4. Oh, we're on number 3. Number 3, we have 6 and 5. Now we're going to mix it up a little bit. Now we're going to use a 20-sided die, and we're going to use a 6-sided die, and we're going to make our numbers a little bit bigger, so it's going to be a little harder. But remember, we have our methods here that we can use to get the answer that we need. Okay. All right, we have 2 and 5, so not too bad. That's the same as a 6-sided. We have 10 and 2. And then for this last one, I'm going to add 2 20-sided die. Let's see who can get the answer first. We're going to make a little competition here. Are you ready? We have 15 and 10. Good job, Jeff. All right, Esteban, did you get the correct answer?
Barely.
Now we are going to move on to the subtraction section of our game. I wish I had die that were slightly bigger, but we're going to go with it. We're going to start with our 2 6-sided die, and we're going to subtract, and I'll tell you the first number, and you're going to subtract it to the second number. So we may end up getting a negative number, but that is okay. If you have questions, just ask me. What is 3 minus 5? All right, both did good. 4 minus 6. And 2 minus 1. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and add in that 20-sided die with a 6-sided die. All right, we have 6 minus 2. 5 minus 10. Good job. Esteban, can you do this in your head, or are you copying Jeff? We are on our last one. Let me add in the second 20-sided die. And again, we're going to make this last one competitive. Here we go. What is 18 and minus 5? All right, what answer did you get, Jeff?
13.
All right, and Esteban?
13.
Good job. I think Jeff was just slightly faster than you, so we'll practice a little more of those later. We're going to have a quiz here in just a moment so that we can test our true knowledge of what we learned today. I'll take these out of the way. And we are first going to learn how to subtract by hand. So we have these methods here. We're going to do add and subtract, not just subtract. We have these methods here, but this is not what you're going to see. These are just ways that you can do it. So when you have a test, you're going to have something that looks similar to this. Let me write it out here. Okay, so we have 90 minus 14. So when you look at this, what is the first thing you think of in terms of how to answer this question? Do you have any idea?
Start in the ones place.
That is correct.
And work your way left.
All right, so we're going to start over here in the ones column. When we look at, so when we are adding or subtracting, we always start at the top number and we look at the bottom number. And we always start on the right side, which is the ones or whatever it may be there. So when we look at this, we see 0 minus 4. But we know that we can't subtract 4 from 0 without getting a negative number. However, we're taking from the tens column in order to do this. So what we'll do, make sure I'm using the right color. So we're going to start here. What we do is we come over and we borrow one from the tens place. So in this case, this 9 will become an 8. We're going to add the 10 to this side. And then we're going to do 10 minus 4, which is?
6.
That's correct. And then we have 8 minus 1, which is?
7.
Alright, so then we know that 90 minus 14 is 76. But there's a way that you can go back and make sure that you did this correctly. So what we would do is we take our subtracting number and add it with our total. So we're going to move it over here. And we're going to have a little bit of addition. Okay, so when we look at this, we do the same thing. We start over in the ones column, and we add 6 and 4, and then we move on over to the tens column, and we'll add those together to get our total. And if we have the same total over here that we started with at the top, then we know that it was correct. So what is 6 and 4?
10.
That is correct. So we'll add our 0 here, but we have to bring the 1 over into the tens column because we borrowed, well, over here we borrowed 1 from the tens. So here we're adding 1 to the tens column. So 7 and 1 is what?
8.
And then we add another 1 and we have?
9.
That is correct. So then we know that 90, because it is the same number over here, we solved this part correctly, so we know that we did correct. So then we are going to, let me write out another problem, and I'm going to have each of you solve one of these problems into exactly what I just showed you, and then we'll move on to our quiz. And we're going to do a worksheet and then we'll move on to our quiz. This is taking just a moment. That works. Okay. So, Esteban, give me a number. Give me
42.
big, small. Okay. And do we want to do adding or subtracting?
Subtracting.
Subtracting. Okay. Jeff, give me a number.
32.
Okay. Now, one of you guys can solve this problem, and let me just give you one of these markers. Set it there. All right. So, when you look at this, where do you start?
And the ones.
In the ones column. So when you go to subtract 2 and 2,
0.
okay, and then you move on to the tens column and you have 4 minus 3.
1.
Alright, now if you did the same method that we showed, that we just talked about, where you take your answer over here and you add them together, you should get the same number up here on the top. Okay, so if you add, starting over here, you have
2.
and there you have, so you know that you solved your equation correctly. So that is checking your work. Jeff, we're going to do one for you as well. All right, Jeff, give me a number.
73.
Do we want to do adding or subtracting?
Adding.
Okay.
Much easier.
And Esteban, give me a number.
13.
So you guys are keeping a similar number in the ones column. Okay, Jeff. If you looked at this, explain to me verbally, and you can write on the board how you would solve this problem.
I guess we gotta start in the ones place.
Mm-hmm.
Do 3 and 3 to get 6. Move to tens. 7 and 1 to get 8. 486.
Okay. Now, if you looked at this, which that is very, very faint, so let me just trace over it.
Let me just switch.
Okay, when you look at this, if you were to subtract these two, you should get the same number that we have here on the top. So over here on this side, if you will just create your little problem there where you do 86 minus 13, and then show me how you would solve it.
Do it like that.
All right, so you did your problem correctly. Now we are going to move on to a short little worksheet where we do something similar here with the long hand, but the numbers are much larger and you will have to regroup quite a bit. But once we are done, we are going to have a small quiz and it'll probably be time for recess. You excited?
Yep.
worksheets here. We're gonna do some longhand. There's only one addition because you guys seem to be really good at that. We're gonna do some longhand subtraction. So there's your sheet and there is your sheet. So start with the first problem up at the top, and make sure that if you're using any of these here, that it is visible so that I can see which methods you are using, which ones you have picked up on. If you have any questions, just let me know. Yeah, that's something you have to pay very close attention to is the signs. And if you don't mind to write your names on these, be sure so I can know whose is whose. Alright, now the last part of class here, we're going to do a little adding worksheet. It is going to be timed, so I just want to see how many of the questions you can answer within 3 minutes. You have 100 questions that you're going to answer, and then we will be done and we can head on out to recess.
Okay. I've been waiting for this.
Alright, so here's your ones. Flip it over if you don't mind, sorry. Okay, now, let's see, do you have a timer? Children who should not have timers? Thank you. Alright, so we're gonna do 3 minutes. Alright, on the count of 3, you're going to flip your paper over, and then you have 3 minutes to answer as many questions as you possibly can. The person who answers all of the questions or the most questions correctly will get a prize from today's prize box, which is super, super secret, so we will have to see. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Bum, 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 bum. I just want to ask and make sure, do you guys have any questions about what we went over today? We will have a quiz next week on each ways to use the 6 different methods here for adding and subtracting. So if you have any questions, we will cover it now. If not, you are good to go to recess. Nope. All right. This is the most